Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on into another Rooted podcast, of course, brought to you by our awesome friends over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier cannabis harvesting solutions. Check them out, greenbros.com. Tim Strombo coming to you from our Rooted podcast production studio out here in beautiful Denver, Colorado. Thanks for tuning in, be it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or stayrooted.com. Reminder, we have two huge podcasts being released soon. The first featuring cannabis activist and entertainment legend Tommy Chong, and the second featuring entertainment icon Jim Belushi. Those are both in the can. They're being edited as we speak. The video portions of those interviews will be released in an upcoming Rooted TV episode. So if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure to check it out so you don't miss those episodes dropping. Very exciting stuff. Really such a cool experience. We're incredibly excited to release those interviews. And of course, reminder, you can check out Rooted TV on Cannabis Club TV, High Times TV, Harvest TV, and more as well. Head to stayrooted.com for more information. Now, for this show this afternoon, we're very excited. We're going to be talking with our guest, Scarlet Ravin, author of books The Next Level, Cannabis Wisdom for Our World, and Follow the Medicine, Awakening Self-Empowerment. Now, in addition to being a published author, Scarlet is the founder of White Fox, where spirit leads to medicine, a company that produces beautiful vaporizer products and a line of CBD as well. She is a lifelong entrepreneur, and we'll dive into her White Fox project, how she approaches marketing to the cannabis and CBD spaces, and how spirituality has played a role in her development as an entrepreneur. We'll welcome in Scarlet in just a minute, but first, I just want to let you know this podcast brought to you by our awesome friends over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier dry harvesting solutions, from small-scale cultivations all the way up to your big daddy commercial grows. Green Bros dry trimmers, trichome extractors, de-stemmers, sorting machines, precision batchers, the remediation box, their rosin presses. All their machines want to save you time, money, and labor while maintaining the awesome credibility that your brand is known for. That's the number one goal at Green Bros. Check them out, greenbros.com, or call 844-DRY-TRIM to schedule a free demo in your area today. You can also check out Green Bros at NECAN, the NECAN convention in Boston, March 22nd to 24th, Lift in Toronto, June 6th to 9th, and NCIA San Jose, July 22nd to 24th. Okay, without any further ado, let's welcome in Scarlet Ravin, the founder of White Fox, where spirit leads to medicine. You can check out whitefoxatmospheres.com and whitefoxnectars.com. Both those will obviously be linked in the description of the podcast below, so you can go check those out. And we'll ask Scarlet in just a second what the differences are between those two platforms. All right, Scarlet, first off, welcome on into the show. How are you this afternoon? Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
We're very excited to have you. First off, for people who don't know White Fox, tell me about what the brand is all about.
White Fox is a woman-owned and woman-operated company. So I started it about 3 years ago, and I hire only women. And the women that work for me, I mentor them to get their own products into the market space. So we're a bit of an incubator model along with inspirational model. So there's no competition. It's all collaboration. And the space has primarily been activated by men. And so being a woman and a brand owner and an activist in this space, I am grateful to be surrounding myself with more ladies.
Now, you've mentioned it's kind of a bunch of different products in your SKUs. What sort of products have you brought to market that people should be paying attention to?
We are the first Ayurvedic vape pen line to market. So I have a doctor that I work with in India, and he has 5,000-year-old ancient formulations that he's doing organic crude CO2 extraction. I bring those oils over, I add cannabis to them, and then I release them onto the marketplace for specific effects. And the effects are aphrodisiac. So there's one for men, there's one for women, and then we have a dream pen that you smoke before bed, and it'll help you fall asleep and give you dreams as you sleep.
Now, the tagline, where spirit leads to medicine, why is spirituality so intertwined with your company? It was all over the pre-interview. If you look at White Fox over social, you really get that vibe there as well. So tell me, where did that all come from for you?
For me, it's the spirit world is where I primarily live. So I live and experience things in the unseen, and that's my motivation and my reality. And this three-dimensional world where we can actually see physical objects, that's more of To me, that's more in the past. So if I'm focusing more on the 5 dimension and the unseen world, that's what's going to come into being. And my primary interest is to create a brand new world, to build an entirely new empire that encompasses love, spirituality, collaboration, support systems, and nurturing of the human species.
Can you go further into that? Because when you say things like the fifth dimension, and things you can't see, I think you're going to freak out some people. And they're going to be like, oh, this hippie, like, what is she talking about? But at the same time, you run a very successful company and your products are nothing to joke about, and they're gaining real traction in this industry. So where you're coming from is a place of merit, and the ideas I want to blend into something that, you know, your common person, I guess, would be able to digest. So how do you approach that conversation with someone who maybe isn't as spiritual as you?
Yeah, I love that question. So primarily what like the bulk of people believe in is the 3rd dimension. It's what they see with their eyes. I see this couch, I see that wall. Then they think that that's reality. I agree to some extent, but to me, it's an already manifested reality. That reality is already here. What I'm interested in is bringing about a new world. So what I focus my attention on are things that have yet to come into being. So like the microphone that you're speaking into right now, at one point in time, that was an idea in someone's head. That was not a manifestation, right? So the person that focused on that idea brought that into being. So my primary action in this space is to focus on the unseen, to bring a new world into being. And I speak like that because I feel like the world that we're in right now has been built on competition and primarily male-based leaders. And what I would like to see come into this world are female leaders that have a lot of love and a lot of nurturing, aren't afraid of being sexy. Sex and sensuality is a leader into life force. Life force is a leader into creativity. And I am very spiritual, and I'm also very grounded and a badass entrepreneur. So for me to be in this space and to have that kind of platform and still speak to spirit, it'll give it clout and it'll give it merit. And so my goal is to be an entrepreneurial badass, to build an empire, and then also bring in the spirit world and the love world and the nurturing world and show people that we can have it both. Basically.
And that's where I want to follow up with you, actually, because a lot of female entrepreneurs that I've come across in this space as well, maybe they tend to shy away from bringing in the sexy part, you know, and their advertising, their marketing. It's almost like they want to go too much into business and professionalism and see that. And not that there's not a place for both to be intertwined, but I like that you were able to say, no. Like, sex can be here. Like, we can do this all. How did that play into when you go to create your marketing ideas? Like, how important was you to say, I want to be professional, but at the same time, I want to represent like what I want this women's space to be?
Yeah, that's such an exciting conversation for me. So I grew up as an extremely sexual being. I love sex. I love to feel good. I became a stripper when I was 18. I was a dancer in that space for almost 5 years. And throughout that time, I was really treated poorly by people that judged me. They were calling me a whore and a hooker. And I was like, well, I'm gorgeous and I'm making money because I'm gorgeous, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's my decision. I had people tell me that I was never going to amount to anything, that I would never make something of myself because I had ruined my self-image. And what that did for me was motivate me to show them that I can be empowered, I can be sexy, I can be professional, and I can do everything that everyone else does in the same way. I want to wake up, I want to look at my closet, I want to wear what I feel empowered to wear that day without allowing external beliefs or judgments to guide me. And there's a secret desire and wish inside of every single fucking woman to have that same freedom. Whether they portray themselves as a professional with glasses and these big business suits, or they let their boobs hang out and they're in more of that space that day, the freedom to make that decision without judgment is a beautiful thing. And so that's the platform I create for my girls. And when we work together, it's a lot of inspiring of we're sexy and we're crushing it. You know, our boobs can be hanging out and we can still be professional and crushing it. We can smoke a joint in a meeting and still be crushing it. And all of those external stigmas that have been put upon us, we're here to crush. We're here to show up and walk through them and show people we're amazing. You can't stop us. We're not going to quit.
Scarlett, in your pre-interview, you mentioned an overdose leading to a big change in your life. Can you share that story with me and how you came out the other side the way you did?
Yeah. So I was a heavy opiate user and someone that went to drugs for dealing with certain PTSD events in my life. And when I had the overdose, I got to see that I had a decision. I had a pathway that could go like this. And I chose to find true peace and happiness. And what that led me to was different retreat centers around the world. I studied with many Zen monks, many different shamans. I would live in different places for a couple months at a time, obtain wisdom. And my goal was true happiness. And around like age 32, I found it. And I realized how to train my mind, how to control my emotional state, and then how to provide those teachings for others, which led to cannabis, because cannabis is the perfect bridge that someone can partake in. And what it does is it creates new neural networks in the brain, which allows for new ways of thinking. So when someone's one-pointed thinking of this is bad or this is this way, and they smoke and they get lifted, then they have access to these other perspectives. Once those are available and they make a choice, that then creates a new reality, potentially.
So you talked about being involved with opioids and that being a problem in your life, which led to the overdose. Was the opioid side and cannabis, were those always two different things for you? Or did you have to move into more of the medical space?
I would say until I learned how to respect cannabis, it was all clumped together as one. So drugs were drugs and numbing was numbing. And cannabis was definitely in that sector. I was 100% dry and sober for 5 years after the overdose. I didn't touch anything. And it was me understanding my relationships to external substances. And that dry spell did allow me to come back to cannabis in a respectful way.
Now, you wrote those two books I mentioned in the offset. What propelled you to want to be a writer and to talk about those subjects that you talked about in your books?
I've had an array of different holistic health clients. I had a practice where I did massage and shiatsu and acupressure, and I was helping a lot of people with their physical ailments. And then that being said, they would come back to me and they would reoccur and reoccur. And what I discovered through my evolutionary process was that the mind is the key. So if we're just focusing on someone's body, their mind can reiterate that health issue. And so the book was motivated Follow the Medicine Awakening Self-Empowerment it's a teaching book, a step-by-step book of how to train your mind, how to allow your perspective to shift where everything that's happening outside of yourself is happening for you and for your growth, and how to always be in a half full vibration.
Very interesting stuff. Now, it seems like through this initial conversation, you have a super unique company, and I'm guessing the company culture is probably super unique as well. What's it like to be an employee at White Fox?
It's very fun. It's very silly. It's very inspired. It's also pretty regimented. I'm a really loving and nurturing boss, I guess you could say, but I also don't take any shit, and I hold my people accountable. So their growth in their own companies is always doing this, and their inspiration is always doing this. And if they are unable to meet the crew and the philosophy in a certain setting, they're not, they kind of do go another direction. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of sweetness and a lot of support and accountability. So it's on them to stay a part of the movement.
Now, your marketing platforms, you see beautiful images. You see people on horses, which I love. Those are just really cool, iconic shots. It's a different approach to marketing than I've seen a lot of companies. And we talked about already how you could bring in the sexuality to it. But tell me about the kind of demographic you're aiming this marketing at.
Initially, I would say it was women 18 to 45 or 50. And that was the primary goal of really empowering these women to come into their own and to take their own lives back and to take responsibility for their happiness back. And now what's happening is it's expanding into older women, and it's expanding into the men's culture for the men who want to learn how to respect women in a good way and learn how to show up for women in a good way. So what started as kind of a niche marketing thing has the sexy images have drawn the men in to see what's going on. And then as we respond to them, they're like, we want to be a part of this. We want to be around women like you. We want to be inspired by women like you. So kind of got a little cross-marketed pollination.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about your company further, you divided into White Fox Atmospheres, White Fox Nectars, both linked in the description of the podcast below, by the way, if people want to check those out. Can you explain the difference between those two platforms and then tell me which one of those came first?
WhiteFoxMedicinals.com came first, which I didn't share with you because it's an updated process currently. So I started White Fox Medicinals, which was a cannabis topical and tincture line. And we will have that in the marketplace probably by end of year. That being said, White Fox Atmospheres is the website representation of our vape pen line. It also has a link to the music video that I made to go along with the vape pen line. And then it's separate from White Fox Nectars because that's a hemp-based CBD line that's nationally sold. And for me to be able to have a payment portal, I can't have any cannabis stuff. So that hence the separation of websites.
Very interesting. So check those out. What sort of products are we talking about on the CBD side? Like what's the best seller? Where should people start over there?
That line is absolutely incredible. So I formulate all of my CBD. It's biodynamic, organically grown hemp. And then I formulate it with other herbs for specific effects. So like my Tranquility Tincture, which I would say is probably the #1 bestseller, has kava kava, skullcap, chamomile, vanilla in it. And you take it for relaxation, anxiety, depression, help with sleep. And the effects are physically felt in like 15 to 20 minutes, which is the feedback I'm getting is people try CBD products over and over and over again. And they're like, what the fuck's happening? I don't feel anything. Well, you get an actual felt response pretty immediately. And then what I did was create these tiny little shooters that people can buy for $6. If they want to try one daily dose before they spend the full 55 to buy the whole bottle, then they can do that. And then it's not that much out of pocket.
Real quick, I want to let everyone know this podcast brought to you by our buddies over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier dry harvesting solutions. You got to check out their Alchemist machines, which take the wonderful trim created by your dry trimmer and turn it into gold. So easy to use. You just put your trim into the machine. You can use it with dry ice or without. It's a solventless extraction process, leaving you with a beautiful product and further profit. Stop selling your trim for minimum value or even throwing it away. Some places I've been to, they actually discard their trim, which is freaking nuts. And get yourself a Green Bros dry trimmer and Alchemist. Maximize your profits by checking out greenbros.com at 844-DRY-TRIM or schedule a free demo in your area. Also hit them up, 844-DRY-TRIM. We're talking with Scarlet Ravin, the founder of White Fox, where spirit leads to medicine. You can check out the websites linked in the description of the podcast below, especially if you want to check out the CBD products that Scarlet just mentioned. Charlotte's my niece's name. I got that mixed up. Sorry. Scarlet, as a longtime entrepreneur, what personality trait do you think has served you the best to help you get where you are? You have a really unique story. And I don't know if it's resilience or adapting to different circumstances in your life, but what personality trait do you think has been most important to you?
I would say I'm unstoppable. I've definitely been faced with a lot of what some people would perceive as challenges in my life. And everything that has gone on in or around me has gotten me to be extremely strong. And Frida Kahlo is one of my idols. And I would love to be that vibration in the cannabis space that revolutionizes the stigma and that allows women to come into the space to feel totally safe to be themselves and then to express all of their gifts in this healing herbal space. And I want to be the mama platform for that, where they all get to come in with ease, express their gifts to the world, and then hold that.
You've been a cannabis consumer for a long time. You got into it at a young age, you said in your pre-interview. No doubt you followed the evolution of the legal cannabis system closely. What are your thoughts on where the industry is now as opposed to where it was when you were growing up?
Super interesting question. There's freedom in it now. There's freedom to be basically, like, I could compare it probably to coming out. You know, you get to, when I'm in line at a supermarket and people are like, oh, wow, I really like your jacket because it's a branded jacket. And they say, well, what do you do? And I get to say, I own a cannabis brand. I'm an activist in the space. Whereas you would have asked me that 2 years ago, and I would have said, I do landscaping work. Nice to meet you. And so there was this whole barrier that came off. And for me, I just kept getting bigger and bigger energetically when that happened. So I'm grateful for the shift to legal. That being said, there is tons and tons of kinks to work out. I mean, they're definitely smashing the small farmer. They're definitely smashing the artisans. We have to claw our way to any sort of financial substance, the way they set up the tax structures. But nothing will ever stop me. So I don't look at those challenges. I look at all the opportunities and focus on that.
Is the irony lost on you at all that you had this tough life where, it kind of culminates in the overdose and then it sets you on this path? You think you would have picked a career that was easier or an industry that was easier, but then you get into cannabis, which is hard. But then again, you've been dealing with hard stuff your whole life. Did you ever consider going into something else? Or are you just a masochist?
I am interested in feeling alive every day. I don't see anything as hard or easy. I see it as challenges. And then when I overcome them, I feel like Wonder Woman. So I'm fed by what some people would perceive as obstacles. To me are brain food. And they keep me busy. Like, even as we're talking, there's 10 other brands that I'd like to start right now if I was funded. I have a mind that is literally constantly doing this. And in this cannabis space, it's viable for creativity. So I'm at home. I'm happy here.
I'm glad to hear it. I want to follow up to the last question I asked. A lot of people, some with strong ties to the cannabis industry like yourself, have been frustrated or disapproving of the influx of mainstream business people flooding into the industry. Many there for the right reasons. I've had a lot of them on the podcast, some obviously just for the money. So when you think about people coming over from mainstream world and diving into the cannabis space, what are your thoughts on seeing that blend in the industry?
That's it. I've never thought of that. What do I think about that? Well, I think it's cool that we're getting more mainstreamers onto our side rather than larger stigmatic people building up on the other side. So in that sense, it's positive. And the people that I've had mainstreamers try and hire me to vet investments or to get on their team as an investment crew. And what's been my experience is if they're not nurturing towards the cannabis culture in any way, they will get pushed out. We have a very tight knit way. We have our own culture. We have our own way of speaking, and we have our own way of respecting one another within the cannabis space. And it's extremely difficult for people that don't actually learn about the culture or learn about how to respect the space to survive inside of it.
Yeah, and I think if that's your first run at that answer, that's a very good answer, and you can use that for future podcasts because that was well done. That was a good one. I'll throw you more of a softball. What kind of advice do you give to someone who comes up to you and says, I want to do what you're doing right now? How do I go ahead and make that happen? How do I become a badass?
I say follow your dreams, set your intention, listen to your intuition, follow the signs, and never stop. Never give up. And when stuff gets harder, just know that your opportunity is getting greater.
How much of this did you have to learn post? I guess if I had to, I'd say the overdose was like your middle point, right? Where you had that life before and now you have the life after. How much of learning to be an entrepreneur did you learn in that after period versus what you knew before?
Yeah. So I was raised to be an entrepreneur. I was raised to never work for anyone but myself. I was taught that hourly was slavery. And so that was ingrained in me. And then I would say, I totally agree with you. Once the overdose happened, what the shift that happened was I took myself and my life seriously. Whereas before I had all the same attributes to entrepreneurialism, but I wasn't taking it seriously. I was being super frivolous with my health and with my energetic space. And then when I saw the loss of that, the potential loss of that, I took all my actions seriously. So then I spent the next 8 years cultivating my inner self so that I could then have the empire that is being built right now.
You talk about these different teachings and this little bits of wisdom you've pulled from different stays in your life, going to different places. For someone who's maybe struggling mentally or even physically with something that you may have gone through, what do you say to those people as here's a good place to start? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I went to Esalen Institute and I took a 5-day workshop called How Our Wounds Can Lead to Healing. And it was my first time ever being in a nurturing, honest environment where I could speak my truth and be heard and feel safe. And as soon as I realized what that did for myself, like just sharing your truth and being seen is a healing. And without having that experience, people shove stuff inside, they take drugs to then further not feel that. And if you can experience the ease of letting it go and being seen, then you're on the path. You're already there. You've already shifted out of being controlled by your emotions. So I would say Esalen is an epic starting place. It's a great health container. There's a whole bunch of other retreat centers that kind of hold that same vibe. I got a list of monks people can go to. I got some crazy gurus out in Colorado that people can go visit, but they're out there. The medicine is out there.
Scarlet, any more plans to write another book in the future?
Yeah. I have one. I have two that I'm working on right now. I have one that's about half written. I'm going to be releasing a book on specifically sex and cannabis. And then I have like an outlaw love story novel that I'm writing.
Awesome. That's exciting stuff. What makes you want to, like, where do you find the time? Like, running your own company, like, I have a number of things that I'm doing that take up all my time. And so writing a book or something like that just seems like such an added on pressure that you're even putting on yourself. So how do you do this?
I'm also opening a dispensary right now in Santa Rosa.
Because why not? Let's throw something else in there, right?
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, just what I said is super honest and true, is my mind does this all the time. And so when I'm actually giving it an outlet, I'm feeling a sense of release. And when I'm not doing, which is the medicine I need to learn, is to slow down, to not be so excited, to kind of come back to my breath. That's the piece that I'm working on right now. One of like the biggest challenges I have during the day is to not be at this level of super excitement, ecstatic, because that's where I live. And even though some people are like, why would you want to control that or dampen that? It's still an imbalance. It's like me, like on crack. And when I can kind of chill and get myself to relax, that's more of the homeostasis state, right? So that's the work I'm doing on myself right now.
Exciting stuff. Now, last question before we get you out of here. What does the future look like for White Fox? Now, in the pre-interview, you mentioned you're just about ready for investment and trying to get to that, where you can blow it up level. What does that future 1 year, 5 years look like?
I see White Fox being the largest female-owned and operated company in the cannabis hemp space in the nation to begin with, and then moving into international. So in 3 years, I see us being the largest brand in the nation, and 4, maybe 5 internationally. Female-owned, female-operated, female spiritually driven and supported. And yeah, this is the first time where I'm saying, do you want to be a part of the team? Do you want to partner with us? Do you want to take us to the next level and give us that financial platform where we can then have more SKUs in the cannabis space and have more medicine available? There's a stack of inventions in my brain right now of products that have yet to be released onto the market that take a specific amount of funding.
Exciting stuff. Now, did I forget to mention anything before we go, or is there anything else that you want to touch on?
I feel like that was so good.
Okay, cool. Her name is Scarlet Ravin. She's the founder of White Fox, again, where spirit leads to medicine. Overall, it's a very positive person. Very excited to have had this conversation. Scroll down, check out the websites, whitefoxatmospheres.com, whitefoxnectars.com. She mentioned White Fox Medicinals, right? .com. That will be live around the end of the year. So, hey, how about this? When you get closer to the end of the year and you're ready to launch that site, come back on the show and we'll talk more about that, okay?
Yeah, bud. Sounds good.
Awesome. That's going to do it for us on the podcast this afternoon. Big thanks to our guest, Scarlet Ravin. Again, don't forget to scroll down, check out those websites. Also, big thanks to our friends over at High Times TV and Cannabis Club TV for continuing to air our Rooted TV platform, where you will, of course, check out a video clip of this podcast on a future episode. So don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel or hit up stayrooted.com to check out past episodes. But that's going to do it for us on the show this afternoon. My name's been Tim Strombo, and I'll remind you one more time to work hard, be humble, and stay rooted. See you next week, everybody.